Thanks for joining us for this last breakout session before we hopefully regroup back in the main room, so don't run out. Please go back to the main room. It'll be a great closing session. So this is workers with disabilities, and in the program was a stat that over 13% of our population in Otter Tail County specifically is reported having at least one disability, and that can take a range of things. What that might be, but we have with us today a great panel to talk about how to engage with folks with disabilities, some considerations for doing that to be successful with it, and an employer with us who is seeing success and having success in that area. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, their name, their organization, and kind of what they do. A couple of them you've seen already today if you were here earlier, but let them introduce themselves again.
I'm FERN Johnson, and I'm a program specialist in placement for the Minnesota Vocational Rehabilitation Services. I've been working in this field for about 14 years now, and it's a great field. The longer I work in it, the more enthusiastic I am about the possibilities for people with disabilities to find employment and changing things up. The key word today seems to be flexibility, and it's wonderful to hear that all the flexible options that are out there now with businesses and just the accommodations we can help out with to make a successful hire.
I'm Jody O'Brien. I work at Productive Alternatives. I work in our PERM and our Alex location. I don't really know what my role is. I'll call myself a site supervisor. I can kind of just wear a few hats. So.
And that mic should be on.
Oh,
yes.
Hi, I'm LAURIE Sanders. I work for Otter Tail County Human Services. I am the lead worker in the Disabilities unit, so work with a lot of individuals with disabilities and look at trying to help them enhance their life, have more inclusion, get some choices in their life, and it seems employment is one of their favorite choices. So hoping to be able to share some information about that.
Hello, I'm Jake STANBROUGH from Central Market PERM. I am the grocery manager. We have 7 of the productive alternatives that come and work at our store. We've had great success with them. I'd like to come here today and tell you about that. Thank you.
Great, thanks everyone. So in your work with individuals with disabilities, why don't we start with talking about maybe some misconceptions that might come to mind from folks who aren't in this realm when it comes to employment and the ability to work.
Well, I think one of the things is that I could touch on is accommodations or accessibility. The misconception I see is that accommodations and accessibility is going to cost the company money. The truth is it rarely costs a lot of money to do things. It can be a simple thing. For myself, I know I like to have headphones because my hearing as I get older is a little bit less profound than it used to be, and that's simple. And another example would be when accommodations are made sometimes for a person that has challenges, is that it really has a positive effect in all the other people that work for you. I use the example of the handicap accessible door. That was set up so people that use a wheelchair for mobility were able to access and have the door open for them and keep open. But I'm not sure if there is not one of us that have not used that because our arms are full, we've got a baby on our hip or something. Sometimes I'm too lazy to grab the door. I just am going to press the button. And that's become a real, that's a positive thing. So my thought process is accommodations work for everyone in the long run. And another one that I think is that the individuals, well, they can't do that kind of work. However, a lot of times when anybody is trained correctly with or without disabilities, they become lifelong better employees. So what we're finding, and I think Jody can attest to this too, is that when we're able to train those people individuals correctly from the get-go, there's a long-term person that will stay longer than a lot of people without disabilities, and statistics will show that.
Yep. I don't know that I need a microphone, do I? Okay.
Maybe for the camera?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, sorry. It just makes me nervous, that's all.
Hands there.
I was kind of under
Can I hold
the.
it for you?
Think of it as an ice cream cone.
Oh, yeah, well, I've been wanting ice cream for a while. Yeah. But to touch on something you said where sometimes people think they can't do the job. And that's something that I think, I've worked at PA for a lot of years, and I think that has come up more than once, way more than once. And honestly, one of the things that we always do is say, well, why wouldn't we at least try? You know, we don't know until we try the individual at this job. Maybe they'll be great at it. And honestly, more times than not, that is the result. And there we have the job coach there too that can help support to make sure that that's going to happen. But it's usually a quite pleasant surprise.
Not really sure what I can add to what they've said, other than that we take it, you know, from the case manager's perspective, we'll take an individual and we'll say, yep, they have a disability, but what abilities do they have? And start looking at the things that they can do, the parts of a job that they could really do really well. We've had to talk with assessors at our county level when they assess someone, they'll say, well, you know, they really can't do home management tasks. And we say, really? Because they take out the garbage and they put their dishes in the sink and they make their bed. And so, yep, they can. What parts can they do? Let's not focus on the negatives. So, again, that's what the message I would have for employers is we can focus on what they can do and we can teach them a lot of what we don't think they can do.
I can add to the part, you know, coming into the grocery store, there's kind of a lot of doubt what they're going to be able to do and what they couldn't. Having the coach with them and being able to train in separate areas, we could try and put them, say we try cashiering first, see if that worked. If that wasn't for them, we go to a different spot and we just kind of replace until we found what worked best for everybody. And after we've gotten that fit to where everybody was happy with it and what worked the best for everybody, has been outstanding. It has worked out very well for us and for them. They come to work, they're very happy to come to work, and it's good to have them there.
Can I add something to that?
For sure.
Okay, so that triggered something, what you were saying, Jake. So we do have a person who cashiers there, and she is able to count back the till, but we have restrictions because we need to have her get on the bus at a certain time. So what we ended up doing is we have her do the majority of the job. She'll count the till at the beginning of her shift, then she'll do all of her cashiering, but because there's not enough time at the end of the shift, they've made that exception that she does not have to count the till at the end of the shift. So that just triggered that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great example there. So, and then we've already touched on some of this, but you know, what in your experience in working with individuals with disability or hiring individuals, what do you see as those benefits for your clients and from the employers? I don't know if there's other things to add. I know we've kind of already touched on that a little bit in our opening comments, but other benefits.
I'm not sure where to start here. A great thing about seeing the productive alternatives crew come in is how happy they are to be there. How when getting to do their job, because they just love doing their job. They have tons of pride in their work, and they come in with a great and happy attitude. There's a lot of other employees at the mall that recently have been coming in with not so great attitudes and tend to bring down the workplace a lot. The quality of work is not good, and we have not seen any of that from any productive alternatives. They come in, the customers that come up on them, hi, good morning, how are you doing? I had a conversation with one who was telling me about his favorite Halloween candy this morning, how much he likes Halloween. And it brings up the morale, I think, of the employees that work around them and also the customers that come in and talk to them also. There's just a way happier atmosphere than there all around. It's a great experience.
Great, and Laura, you've given a couple of examples. I don't know if you want to
I
share.
was just gonna pick it up.
Yeah, all right, you're on it.
So
Why am I here?
a benefit too that I've seen for a client, but I also know that this benefited the employer he was showing up for. He was raised in a family that said, oh, you don't want to work, you'll lose your benefits. you know, you can't work, you won't get any money from Social Security. And that is really the attitude that we came against with him when we tried to bring him into the work world. And he was very much against it. He was in legal trouble all the time. Well, by some stroke of luck, he got placed in a job at Pizza Ranch. It was in Alexandria. And by the end of the time that I worked with him, he was picking up every extra hour he could in order to pay for the vacations he had started to enjoy going on. And he enhanced his life, he enhanced their business. It was a win-win. And so I would encourage people to find those people and find those employers, because it's really great when they match up. But it's only good if it works for both of them.
Yeah, Laurie, it's interesting that, because that kind of the same answer to that, or same comment came from our probation director in our last session. That was, you know, staying busy, and you mentioned, this individual was having legal issues, was having run-ins with the law because they had too much time on their hands potentially, and didn't, yeah, so it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, they found him in all kinds of interesting places.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to add to that, not only coming in with the great pride in work and having a good time, looking forward to coming in every day to work, we get a better quality of work. You know, there's a lot of them out there just, we're here for a paycheck, we're just gonna do everything, you know, not do it to the best of their ability. And the PA comes in, when they're there, they do everything absolutely perfect. They strive to do it perfect. I get a lot, is this good enough? Is this what you want? A lot of questions asking, because they want to make sure that they do it to their best ability. That's a huge part that we don't see very often either, besides in the PA.
Well, and I think that for myself, as an example, I know there's a local motel that I'm going to tonight, in fact, they're hiring people with disabilities left and right. And so as being a supportive consumer of theirs, I'm going to pick that motel before I'm going to pick the other one, because I know of their open-mindedness to people with diversity.
I do that too.
Yeah.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, so I think that you touch a lot of people's lives when chances are given for people that have not disabilities, they have unique abilities. Dis should be taken out of the word. It really should be unique abilities, because we all have them no matter who we are.
I can't add to that. That was good. Seriously, that was good.
All right, well then, kind of moving on to getting more into the meat of it and doing this. You know, we know we've heard some great stories, but what are the supports or accommodations that an employer could make when they're employing individuals with disabilities or with unique abilities that they might need to be thinking about? You mentioned the shift time, that's something, but what else is there?
Well, I mean, I guess we do it all the time, so a specific example doesn't really come to my mind right now, except for when Jake triggered that about how we had to make that adjustment for the one individual to get the job done. We have the other people, I'll just kind of pick on Central Market since you're here. But we have a cleaning crew that goes there too, and what we do there is we have somebody come in for the first portion, and they have their list of tasks that they do. We go back to Productive Alternatives, and then we grab a different person who has the other tasks. So they share the task list. So we can do things like that, and just see I guess whatever works best for the people is what we end up doing.
Along that line, I've seen a lot of times where Productive Alternatives has trained 3 individuals for one job. And they're working Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But you know what that means for the employer is that when someone's sick, they pull in the other one. And they're fully trained to do that job. The job coach knows them. So that's a real benefit too.
I think so too,
And I think that it meets needs for the clients, the individuals with the disability, because they maybe can't work full-time. They maybe cannot be there every single day. But they can do that same job really well, however many days a week they're asked to do it.
Yeah.
For VRS and our services, remember you have already paid for our services for Minnesota Vocational Rehabilitation Services. We're free the services we provide are consultations for businesses. They're free to you as a business. They're the programs that we offer, some of the hiring incentives, job tryouts, giving an opportunity, we can reimburse at 150%. That's not a cost to you. I told one employer, I said, well, you're paying a lot of taxes, so you're getting some of it back by doing this, you know? And it really is true. And even with on-the-job training, somebody comes in and they have everything you want. I mean, the personality to boot. And that happens a lot. It happens a lot. But there's maybe an area that there is struggles or there's extra supervision. Either a job coach can take that, or if you have a mentor, and I love it when businesses have mentors, is because we can reimburse again some of, as long as they're a VRS participant, I gotta put that in there, is reimburse, you know, the 150% even after the actual hire date to learn that specific tool. So there's a lot of opportunities to use these programs. And, you know, even with PA, we work well with PA. We work on the waiver, we make sure, and to find those services that are out there. I've worked for DEED for 24 years in different capacities. And I think that just being able to reach out, I love being that person for you to come to with questions, because it's, if I don't have the answer, I'm going to find somebody that does. I'm kind of tenacious that way. It's like I'm a dog with a bone. You know, let me try to figure it out. And I'm pretty straightforward. So these services really are yours to utilize in any way that you can or need to.
I think you guys have talked about two, you know, different ways that you can engage, you know, if you have a special project, you know, the county, you know, and I don't know if there's any other governments like schools maybe back there, but, you know, our hiring process as a government agency for folks who work for us has an application process. It has to be competitive. It has to be, you know, we have a process, you know, which we failed at the experiment this morning on how to find your employment opportunities, but that's another story. You know, but we think about it in, you know, is there a special project that, you know, maybe it's sorting something or filing or, you know, something that's a limited term, that we can be more flexible in how we hire that we don't have to go through our full review of candidates and the process that we are required to do otherwise. So you guys had talked about that earlier when we chatted about, you know, carving out a part of a job or a special project. I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit more, maybe Jody or Laurie or.
Yeah. We have done that. We have an individual in the FERN location who Arvig had hired for doing some clerical work. So, and it wasn't, of course, the entire job. They actually had a specific room for her and certain projects that needed to be completed. She absolutely loved it. So I would love to tell them that she loved it again. She asks about it often. So, I mean, yeah, there's, yeah, and she loved it, yeah. So, yeah, so we do that often, yeah.
Well, in bringing up the county, I had an individual too, those little fat tax books that they all had to be microfiched and all of that. And that was a limited time. And then I had an individual that was able to do that. So we placed her in that. And initially, we did a job tryout to make sure she could lift the books and maneuver the books just to test out the waters a little bit. And she worked there until the completion of that project. And what's nice about that with our youth, and I think that's where, well, that's where our workforce is coming from, plain and simple. Our youth programs is, one thing I mentioned today at noon was the work experience, is being able to open doors for these young people to gain the experience, job shadowing or just tours. And we have a company up north that actually, when it comes to people with disabilities, their normal process is application, interview, tours. They switched it around. It's tours to show the individuals what's going on in their business. The second part is kind of an interview. She said, it's a little bit, it's more of a conversation. You know, do you like this? And then the application process, because that's the legal obligation that you have as an employer. And then she's been able to utilize, this young man was put in one spot. Did not work out, there's a conflict. She put him in another and he's been there. So they're, in a way that's flexible, but it worked out really well. I like that process, so just a suggestion.
Yeah, that's great. So, you know, employers may be sitting here going, okay, well, what do I do? This sounds great. Like, and I don't know, if Jake, you want to start by talking about how did this relationship get started? Maybe it predated you, the experience with PI and in that relationship. But maybe talk through that, and then others can add.
It did predate me.
Okay.
Yes. I started Central Market 6 years ago, like right as the Central Market took over, and I believe PA was there before we even took over.
Okay.
So we kind of carried over from Dean's right to Central Market.
But it's expanded a lot
It
in
has,
the last
yeah.
few years,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
It's definitely gotten bigger. And when I started, there was just a small presence. They come in, just do a couple things at the store. Now we've had them in four separate departments. Like I said, cashiering, grocery, dairy department. They worked quite a few different areas in the store. It has been a very good experience all around, I believe.
Yeah, so how did you expand, just like getting, for my own knowledge, I guess, and others, but so when you have an opportunity, like what's the chicken and what's the egg? Like where, so you have, and do you say, hey, maybe, do you just now have it in your mindset to like, oh, we should check in with PA and see if there might be someone who could fill this need for us, or is it something that's been hard to fill in traditional hiring, or how do you identify where they can fit into your workload?
I think it kind of was a trial and error. I think PA came to us today. We have a few that would like to try this. Would you have a spot? Like, well, we'll try the grocery for a little while. And we try grocery and then see how it works out. And there's several different positions in grocery that we give a try to. And we keep trying until we found something that worked well for everybody. And not every position is going to fit anybody there, so we have to, person, kind of see what they excel at, see where they fit the best, and go work with it from there.
So maybe now to Jody, as if an employer is interested, do they call you? Who do they call?
Yep, they sure can. They can call me, but we do have our employment specialists that I was talking about earlier, that I'm sure in your case, Jake, that's how, other than the cleaning crew, that is how the majority of your people came to you, is through our employment specialists. But we've formed a working relationship to where now not only Jake, but Cindy is another one from Central Market, will call and say, do you have anybody who could do this, that kind of thing, so, yeah.
And it goes both ways, so like
Yep.
if you have a client you're working with, or in your job placement specialist?
The employment specialist, yes.
Yeah.
Have someone that they also, now that they know Central Market, they know where they might fit in. Okay.
Exactly.
And as the business specialist or program specialist up in Northwest area, we partner with PA Blue Sky. There's a lot of partners that we're able to partner with that even Googling Vocational Rehabilitation Services, Otter Tail, Minnesota, we have placement coordinators, which are similar to the ES. There's a lot of ways that we can find the right resource for you. And as a state agency, that's kind of what I do too. So contacting us, and I'll say, oh, PA's got a spot, or I know they've got some people they need to work with. Then I'll see if they've got them, or VRS has them. So if we've got those incentives to utilize, hiring incentives to utilize in their VRS participant working with PA, we can round that all up together and work together.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
From the county standpoint, we're coming in when somebody needs some supports on the job. They need the job coach. And obviously, that's something that needs to be funded. So what I was going to say is when Harbor Freight came into Fergus, I don't know where it started, but somebody started working there the day they opened their doors, because someone, I'm assuming from Productive Alternatives, got in there with Harbor Freight before they even opened the doors to talk about employees that they had looking for jobs. So I mean, they probably went to the job fair thing and.
They actually were at
Oh,
the rural Minnesota step office. That's where they did all of their hiring
Okay.
processes, so.
Yep, and so we had people that then we, you know, then we're approached because, oh, we need the funding because they need a job coach to learn the job. And I found that, I mean, it was just kind of it was a bonus to think, well, we got a new business for Fergus, but we also got another place for our people with disabilities to work. So it was a warm feeling.
Yeah.
I didn't know how it got there, but it got there.
Darren, do you have a question?
Yeah, it was kind of a self-serving question, but my wife and I just got licensed for adult foster care, and so would our prospective client, would they start with the county for these opportunities, or if we had someone move from a different county to our home, how would they know about these opportunities?
You know, it's going to depend. It's going to depend a little bit on their age. It's going to
Sure.
depend on what their past experience has been with VRS, and we're going to have to look at all of that piece.
Sure.
But it's going to start with the county case manager.
Okay.
And they're going to identify that, yep, this person has needs for employment supports, and it's going to go down that road of what's the right provider, where do we go with that? But
Okay. Thank you.
it's going to start there.
Okay. And then they'll be in contact with, once they've identified the need and gone through the process of what the capabilities are, they'll work.
The case manager's going to work with making referrals to where they need
Got
to where they need to be.
Thank you.
Yeah, and even those that, VRS, we all work together.
We do.
Sure.
I mean, and so if the waiver, they may need to contact VRS. And then VRS, I've had in the past, how it used to go is we'd start out with like PA for the job coaching, but the job coaching needed to be long-term, so then the waiver needed to be in place. So we're developing and have developed good relationships that way.
We have to talk a lot.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, other questions? We have some more to talk about, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I guess I don't have a question,
Oh,
just a
okay.
couple of comments, just to kind of, based on what you're talking about. So I have a son who was involved in productive alternatives, and then I just want to get to know it's been life-changing for him. One thing you did not mention that I think is probably one of the most important things for him is the relationship he builds with his job coach.
Yes,
They have become good friends.
yeah.
They have become, he talks about his job coach all the time. And then finally, just the last thing you mentioned, Jay, with employing productive alternatives, that's the only place we will go grocery shopping, as will our neighbors and family and other people that are part of that. So just to kind of validate what you're saying, it's all true.
I'd like to add too, where you said the relationship that they get with their job coaches, I think they also get relationships with their employers too. I see that often, and it's really, really cool to see.
Great.
And then there's the relationships with all the people that shop there. They will know everybody.
Yeah.
So it just really makes their life so much bigger.
Great, good question.
I am Aaron Zerman, high school principal in Perham. Just looking at just things that Darren echoes. Well, first and foremost is his son deployed at Perham High School, and we couldn't be more blessed to offer those opportunities. With that being said, we watch students. I love the term that you used earlier, unique abilities. We age students out no matter who they are. Some of them at 18. Some of them at 21, depending on what their unique abilities may be. And for our students who are on individual education plans, as a principal in our team, that you work closely with students and families, and very strong families and supportive families within the whole process of how we educate within those IEPs and so forth on there. But one part I guess I would ask is how could we reach out, or things that we could be doing better and best practice to bring these support services to these IEP settings to be able to help best support families well before they're aging out. Very uniquely, I appreciate the Central Market, Service Food, other community businesses. We've been working with Freshwater Co-op to be able to help students. Our pairs end up being their job coaches, so we go out in and get those experiences prior to leaving there, then how we can develop that later on down the road. I just think that there's the principalship, there's one more layer that, any student leaving the high school, no matter who they are, but when But we get in situations where a lot of these support services are there. Parents have learned these. It's been kind of the backbone of helping them nurture their son or daughter and work through the process and get involved in the community. And then all of a sudden, it feels like that's just gone when that student's aged out. So I guess what I'm looking at is best practice, or is that our work to do some more outreach to, I would love to have these entities at the table in an individual education planning meeting for that student well before they left and aged out of our high schools.
At the county, we like to hear about them at 14. We want to start hearing about these students, what their interests are, where they're headed. If we have time to work with them, we're better with them too, because they know us before they leave the people that they're comfortable with. So that's just really, really valuable to the families and the kids. So if teachers can be working with those transition times and having parents visit that idea, and you might have to present it more than once to some people to make them really think it's a good idea. We've come out to transition meet. I mean, we've done some things during parent-teacher conference time where Freedom Resource and VRS and myself, we've all been at meetings that parents can just stop in at them and just get acquainted, and I think that does help.
And VRS has what we call pre-ETs, which is the transition program for 14 to 21-year-olds. And they should be, we have reps that should be in every school, and they should be able to help with even those that fall through the cracks, you know? But within their realm, they can introduce them to the VR counselor to help them with where do we go from here after. Because I've seen that throughout my work too, is the families that fall through the cracks and the kids that fall through the cracks. And we've been able to, a couple of them I had up in northern Minnesota, was able to work with an employer to give a work experience to a child that was not VRS eligible. However, he was had an IEP. And so then we were able to give him that work experience. He's employed somewhere else now, but he is employed. He learned some basic skills there. So there are those resources, and I'd be glad to get you my business card, and I will find out. I'm new to this area, so I'm not sure who the transition reps are, but we'll find that out for you. Okay.
And we help with the job coaching for
Yeah.
for the pre-ETs individuals.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think we've, and I know you know Amy Johnson, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, it's something we have talked about with the youth workforce navigation, kind of changing tunes. That was it's another whole effort that we have as a county that we're working, and we have talked about, you know, the individuals, whether came up in our, or we've talked about in our last session, you know, the juveniles who are at risk, or, you know, students who may have IEPs, or you know, how do we make sure we're reaching them, because they're not, you know, they may not have you know, in some cases a household that's going to be looking out for their youth, you know, your career navigation, and even be thinking about it. How do we make sure we're serving all of the students within Otter Tail County through our youth workforce?
I think it also comes with students sometimes and their families, that they'll think that they don't want to reach out to social services because, you know, we don't really have that great of a name.
We need a different name for all this.
You all know what I mean. They don't want to ask for our help because that might mean they need help from social services. And the services to people with disabilities they're voluntary. You don't have to take them. We can't make you take them. And if you give often if they just start with it, they'll realize that they probably should have signed up a while back, because it is supportive and there is somebody else in the meeting helping you navigate those waters. So but I do think that that's why I say you have to introduce that topic more than once, because initially they don't really think of human services always in the most positive light. We're getting in their business and they don't want that. So.
No. One of the programs that we have within VRS, and we have, it's called Customized Employment Training, and I was able to utilize that. I'm sure you have it within Productive Alternative. And what was neat with this one is I took a youth that was on the spectrum, And I just watched him. I had more fun. I was running after horses. It was great. You know, but I could see what kind of initiative he had with that whole fiasco. It's a whole story. And just on how much he knew he had to be out there. Now he had to get things done, what he did in the school. And I broke down what he could do, and he could do it well, and he could do it by himself, and he could initiate it. And I took that information to the parents and the schools to come to help the counselor come up with a plan for a career plan or a job goal. And that is a wonderful program, I think, for those that, well, this child just said he's never going to work in the community. I can tell you right now, he's working part-time in the community. He's been working at the same job for over a year, and he also tried a couple of other things that one fell through because of the pandemic, but he is employed. So being told that made me angry. He'll never work, and he's working.
Yeah.
So.
Great. Well, maybe to close out our conversation here today, not that we have to end, but we have a great session at 3 o'clock. I'm going to say it again because I don't want people to go down the stairs and roll right out the door. So please, back to the main room. Maybe again to close, maybe just go down the line and, you know, either something else that you want to share, a learning from an experience that you've had, or just kind of that last takeaway on our conversation, just to make sure, you know, what's the biggest thing to emphasize, or a learning that you've had.
All around, working with the PA is a great experience. I was just sitting up here thinking a little bit about conversations I've had just in the last couple of days, and watching them come into work and smiling and joking and giving fellow employees, you know, crap and jokes, and it is such a delight to have them around. It really is. It's not only they do great work, they're very prideful in their work. It's a great experience having them there. It's all around very beneficial to us and to them, I believe. It's a lot of fun. If you have any questions, go ahead and give it a try. It's well worth it.
I know you're going down the line, I'm so sorry, but as a consumer, I wanted to mention, I was having a horrible day. And I walked into Fleet Farm, and there was a cashier who was a PA cashier, and his interaction with are they engagement specialists?
Probably the job coach.
Oh, job coach.
Yeah.
Their interaction together made me giddy. Like, I could not smile. And it was a horrible day. And by the time I left, he was like, I wish I could hug you, but I'm busy. And you know, I mean, it was so incredible, and it filled my heart with joy. So I think that goes back to what you were saying before, is like, there's never not a smile on their face, you know? And I mean, that was one experience, and it was impactful. Yeah.
Well, this isn't as good as that.
It's a tough one to follow.
Right, that's hard. But I will say that, you know, we all go places and we run into old friends or old people we've known for half of our lives, and they say, oh, what are you doing now? And I often think, well, let's see, I'm a mom, I'm a grandma, and I'm a social worker. And I just want to give the people I work with that they're a son, they're a daughter, they're whatever, but they also have value to the community and they work somewhere. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
This one?
Sure. I guess I would like to end on the note of, I've worked at Productive Alternatives a lot of years, and I just honestly couldn't imagine working anywhere else. And now that I'm more than 20, I've had a few people, a few people ask me how old, you know, what age are you going to retire? And honestly, I cannot answer that because I can't see my life without these guys. So I'll end on that.
I have so many stories, I know we all do. And I've been doing this a long time also, and I'm over 20. And I mean, even small communities have been tough in the past, depending on the family reputation. But I'll let you know about a manufacturer that I did a job tryout for an individual that did not have the best of reputations. It was a little harder for him to learn, and he was a hands-on learner. He retired in that position. And that story will always sit well with me. And another thing, what was kind of neat on the spectrum, which is kind of the flavor of the month, is that I had a young girl and I couldn't quite understand it until a gal up in Crookston told me. She said, I am like a butterfly in a cocoon. I want to break free, but my disability won't let me. And it was so profound. And she was 22, and she told me that. And these services are great for not only the individuals, but also for the businesses, the happy endings. But remember too, there are people with disabilities, you can't see it. You can't see those disabilities, but they need to work, and they want to work, and they need a chance.
All right, so I guess one final question. How do people reach you? I mean, I think Darren kind of alluded to this question, like where does someone get started? Does it matter how they enter? Or do they call the county and ask to talk to LAURIE? Do they just look at Productive Alternatives website or get a hold of Voc Rehab, VRS? I mean, what should an employer do?
Any of them.
Any of
Yeah,
them?
any of them. And if we can't help you, yeah, we'll send it to the next one.
We'll communicate.
Yeah, we won't push you off, but we'll give you those referral information.
Yeah, so make sure folks have that takeaway as far as, what to do next if they wanted to activate on what they just learned. Let's see, any other questions? So a minute or so, or comments and after questions. It's a great experience sharing here. This is great to hear.
Fable Farmer. There was a young man who worked at Fable Farmer.
Oh,
and
yeah, there was.
I walked
Yes.
I walked in there, I stood at the front, I turned, he turned, and he just goes, and just pulls me in for a big hug, and I gave him a big hug, and he goes, what's your name? So we left with the hug, and I was just like, that's awesome. Like, everyone needs.
And we all know exactly who you're talking
And
about.
they'll call it his dream job.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a dream job.
Well, how about a round of applause for our